Hello, Aluxers, and welcome back. It's common knowledge that if you want to know how something is done, you copy someone who's done it before. That's the purpose of having mentors, coaches, and trainers. But while this holds true, it's not really a general rule. In fact, it's a really specific rule that applies only in particular situations, and this is where most people get it wrong. Following successful people is, most of the time, bad advice, and it will only do more harm than good. You see, if you ask Usain Bolt for advice on how to run a 5K, you're wasting both your time and his. In this video, we're going over why you shouldn't always follow successful people and what to do instead. Welcome to Alux. Number 1. The wrong definition of success. Success is totally subjective and can be defined in a lot of different ways. For many people, success means a particular number of zeros in their bank account. But if you align your definition of success with this, you'll only pay attention to money, not actually applicable information. You'll end up chasing Bugattis and diamond watches, thinking that's the benchmark for you. And in the process, you'll become the easiest target for people to sell you fake dreams. We've seen it time and time again. People get fooled by shiny promises of a better life and give away their time, money, and attention in exchange for nothing palpable. This is one of the main reasons why you shouldn't follow successful people. If you don't have your own definition of success, you'll end up helping others build theirs. Number 2. Their advice is unrelated to your situation. The second reason why following successful people is not always productive is because what they do has nothing to do with what you're doing. You're not in the same industry. You're not even playing the same game. There's very few things a billionaire can teach someone working a 9-to-5 that's actually usable. That's because they operate at an entirely different level and have completely different problems to solve than you do. And they've done it for long enough to the point of losing touch with the everyday reality of an ordinary person. Now, that's not to say that all of them are the same, but you should take everything they say with a grain of salt. Number 3. Nobody gives good advice away for free. This is a fact of life. Nothing worth having is free, including knowledge. There's absolutely no reason for somebody to give away their understanding of things for free if they can't monetize it in some way or another. That's why most valuable know-how sits behind a paywall. Let's say, for example, you're a programmer and want to build and sell your own app. If you find one person who's already successfully built and sold their own app, and for $1,000, you can ask them any questions you want for 30 minutes, would you pay? If you're smart and this person is genuine, you should, because that $1,000 can save you 10 grand worth of trial and error. That's just easy math. You pay $1,000 and get $10,000 worth of value in return. Everybody wins, but you'll very rarely find that knowledge just sitting in some blog post. Number 4. It's hard to double check. It's actually fairly easy to look rich, beautiful, and successful online. You could book a 2-hour photo shoot in a private jet for less than $200. Plenty of businesses are doing just that. Most of the things you see online are fake or exaggerated. Their whole purpose is to make you pay attention, something we've talked about in previous videos. Nowadays, it's surprisingly hard to actually check if someone has done the things they said they have. There are very few people who put their whole schedule on display. There was a whole trend of a day in the life of a millionaire business owner on YouTube, and half the day was them waking up, taking a shower, and going to the gym. So don't take everything you hear and see at face value. Number 5. You are way below their skill level. Sometimes you find someone who's exactly on the path you want to follow, but the problem is, they're so far ahead of you can't possibly relate to them. You are not on the same level. The advice they give is great for their level, but it doesn't really help you much out right now. You still need to put in some more work before you earn your seat at the table. What you can do instead is to find out how they got there. What were their early steps? If they built and sold a company, you're not interested in how they sold it, but how they built it. That's why the advice of someone who makes $100,000 could be much more valuable than the advice of someone who makes $1 million a month. Number 6, you get trapped into always watching, never doing. This is one of the drawbacks of hustle culture. Everybody loves watching, but very few people are actually doing it. If you were to track how many hours you spend watching successful people versus how many hours you actually did something, you'd find a pretty big imbalance. It's really easy to become a watcher because it feels good to always listen to success stories and how other people did it. You think to yourself, someday that'll be me. But the problem is, you say that every single day. You fall into the trap of becoming a consumer rather than a creator. This is also something we talked about in a previous video, which we suggest you watch next. Instead, look for just-in-time information rather than just-in-case information. The difference between the two is that just-in-time information can be used right away. On the other hand, just-in-case information can be used just in case you decide to do something at some point in the future. And this is how people trick themselves into thinking they're being productive. Number 7, you lack their context. You could do everything right and still lose. That's the reality of life. And that happens because some things are hard to replicate even if you do everything right. One of those things is context. For example, Steve Jobs, if he were to still be alive, would not be able to start Apple today. That context is gone. As a fun fact, Apple is now worth more than Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta combined. Some people call it luck, others call it timing, but the idea is that some context is extremely hard to replicate. So when you follow someone successful, even if you do exactly everything you learn from them, you can still lose because you cannot replicate the context. Instead, there's one question you need to ask when you decide to pick a path for yourself, and that question is, why now? The answer to this question will solve your context. For example, for Apple, why now? Or in their case, why then? Well, because that's when technology and market adoption made it possible. This is a really powerful question you can ask yourself every time you want to start something new. Number 8, they overinflate what got them there. When you find success for yourself, it's really easy to pretend you knew what you were doing all along. After all, who's going to argue? You've got the perfect clapback. You're in control of the narrative and you can say whatever you want. You can create a story of how you knew you were going to make it since you were 5 years old and how hard work and sacrifice pays off in the end. And people will buy that full story because it's a cool one to listen to. But usually the reality is a lot more complicated. It's more of an educated guess rather than certainty, and sometimes it's a pure gamble. And that's exactly what literally happened with FedEx's CEO Fred Smith. After they were denied a business loan, Mr. Smith took the company's last $5,000 and literally gambled all of it on blackjack. Fortunately, he won $27,000, and that is what kept the company afloat until things picked up again. The point is, what made someone successful is most likely not what's going to make you successful. Number 9, they're bad teachers. Some successful people are great entrepreneurs and terrible teachers. Just because they made it doesn't mean they have anything important or valuable to say. Now, we've got a bias toward what we define as success. It's actually well documented and it's called survivor bias. It's when you're overly optimistic because you overlook multiple failures. This is what happens when so many people lost a lot of money in crypto rug pulls without doing their proper homework. They were overly optimistic because of a couple of success stories while totally disregarding the myriad of failures. So just because something is a success story, that doesn't mean there's something valuable to learn from it. Number 10, they only did it once. And last, and one of the most important reasons why listening to successful people is usually pointless, it's because they only did something once. They could have been lucky, hit the jackpot, have everything work in their favor, and generally be in the right place at the right time. People tend to pay more attention to who is saying something rather than what they're actually saying. They take for granted whatever someone who seems successful has to say without double-checking. So, with all of this said, who should you listen to? Whose advice should you take into your quest to find your definition of success? Well, in our view, you should adopt a learner's mentality and listen to anyone. You can learn something from everyone out there. Stop focusing so much on other people's success and do your own thing. And as a bonus for you sticking around until the end, the best teacher you will ever find is experience. And by experience, we mean how many things you've done and to what level. So many people say they have 5 years of experience, when in reality they're doing the same thing over and over again for 5 years. Grab the skills you need and put them to work, Aluxer. We'll see you back here tomorrow for the Sunday motivational video.